Welcome to AP World History. We're talking about the Tang and Song Dynasty. This is part two. One of the things that was a real technological invention was the movable type. This is going to take place during the Song Dynasty, and this is going to give them a tremendous advantage over other cultures because it won't have to be done by hand. It will be done essentially by applying the paper over the type, and they would wipe it down with ink, and then it would leave the print on the paper. The Chinese are going to invent paper, and they're also going to have the movable type. And this will increase literacy and promote better government because they can keep records a little bit easier. Um, they had a astronomical clock, which was certainly a step up, um, so you could keep accurate time. They also came up with a compass, and both the compass and the gunpowder is going to be shipped to the West, and it's going to have a tremendous impact on their cultures. Um, this really was the age of the golden age of mathematics under the Song. Um, there were also other things that they were involved in, looking at anatomy. The first autopsy was performed uh, on a southern Chinese captive. Well, not too good for the captive, but anyway, advancing knowledge of the body and how the organs work. The transfer in innovations certainly uh, were important to the West. Marco Polo, Kublai Khan giving protection to Marco Polo and his father as they will return. Also, his uncle was on this adventure. Um, Eventually, the Song Dynasty will be overwhelmed, and the Liao Dynasty, they never can defeat them. The people in the northern part border of China, the Khitan people of Manchuria, were too strong an opponent for them. Failure to conquer the Khitan people revealed the weakness of the Song Dynasty, um, and the Song Dynasty uh, will will sign a series of humiliating treaties in order for them to stay in power. Uh, the Liao dynasty forced them to pay tribute. Eventually, the Song dynasty will be defeated by the Mongols in the 13th century. This shows you uh, the Liao dynasty being able to extract money from them. Mongols being in the northern area of Siberia, and further west, sweeping down and subduing the Song dynasty eventually. In agriculture, one of the things that really puts China on the map in terms of population is their ability to produce food. Champa is a rice that they will, a strain of rice coming from Vietnam, which will allow them to grow 2 crops a year, which certainly can feed a lot more people. Um, so the increase of this rice will be directly related to being able to support more people on the land. The Song dynasty was certainly involved in trade with foreign nations. In the Tang period, the Silk Road, they turned west. During the Song dynasty, they established trade routes in Asia. They stretched as far as Japan, Southeast Asia, India, Africa, which also helped spread the belief of Buddhism. It shows some of the ships, boats that they used. Um, pretty sophisticated for their time. This shows some of the pottery under the Song Dynasty. In terms of politics of the Song Dynasty, the way it was constructed were military leaders were subordinate to civilian administrators who were subordinate to the emperor. Only civilians could be regional governors, and military commanders were rotated frequently to prevent them from building up too much power. The Song Dynasty promoted Confucianism. They gave civil service exams. If you had enough money, you could go to school, learn Confucius teachings, and then take the exam. It was possible for people of the lower class to take the exam and improve their livelihood. The civil service became a lucrative profession for many, a steady employment and far more comforts and less work. Zhu Xi, a prominent Confucian scholar at this time, stressed the importance of applying philosophy to everyday life and action. So Confucianism is really going to be the main ideology of the Chinese culture. Here shows a picture of government schools. The civil service recruited those who could pass 3 levels of imperial exams. About 60% were filled this way. Others were filled because you happened to be in the right family. You were at the top. This is an examination hall of the Thorny Gates, and people would sit there and take their exams, and if you were lucky enough to pass, then you got to be part of the government. Zhu Xi is a picture here of him, and a prominent philosopher. The Neo, or the New Confucians, believed that cultivating personal morality was the highest goal for humans, and they argued for virtue, and you could attain that through books and personal observations. This is a period where the Chinese will start looking inward. They will become, these new Confucians will become very hostile to ideas and practices that are outside of China. And this is going to be one of the reasons that they're going to fall behind, is that they sort of reject things outside their borders. They seem to want to be hitched to the past. Li Bo and Tu Fu were 2 prominent poets during this time. When you have an abundance of food, people are able to do other things other than farm. So literature, poetry, paintings will all be promoted by the Song and Tang dynasty. Most of the paintings were of nature, the environment. Very ornate, very beautiful. One of the things too that was interesting was that if you were in the upper class, they had something called foot binding. And so you wanted your feet to be small, and eventually you would cripple your feet to a point where you couldn't, you had to be carried around, and your foot was bound up and tried to make it smaller. And this was a sign of higher status in the society. Unfortunately, young girls' feet were certainly crippled. Eventually this practice will be done away with in China in the 1940s and 50s when the communists come into power. Imperial Chinese foot binding, well, I guess there's some folks, some women who want to wear high heels that actually remove their little toe. So maybe that's pretty extreme too. The Song Empire shrinks. They will start withdrawing their influence from Taiwan, Tibet, Vietnam, Korea. The Khantans are the ones in northern China that give them so much problems. Liu dynasty established the Qin dynasty, and the Qin attacks the Song. So you don't need to know all that, but that's sort of how it plays out. And eventually the Song dynasty will come to an end. And the Liu dynasty established the Qin dynasty. We talked about that. And here shows a map of the different geographical areas controlled by different dynasties. And that's the end of our show. And remember that the secret word is sinification.